Get out now. The words split the lobby like glass shattering on marble. The manager's face was red, veins alive on his forehead, suit jacket pulled taut as he jabbed a finger across the counter. His voice wasn't meant for her alone. It was meant for every witness in the chandelier-lit lobby. Across from him, she stood still, a black woman in a plain black t-shirt. No jewelry, no entourage, no designer heels, just sneakers planted steady on polished stone. Her eyes widened, but only for a second. Shock gave way to silence. She didn't argue. She didn't move. The crowd behind them shifted. A man in a gray jacket raised his phone, thumb hovering over record. A blonde woman in a navy blazer and assistant manager maybe stood at the desk, hands folded, a thin smile cutting across her face. Behind her, 3 guests leaned in, curiosity lit in their eyes. Some smirked, some frowned. Everyone watched. The manager slammed his palm down on the desk. "You heard me. Out. This lobby is not for you." His finger shook as it stayed pointed at her, like he could erase her by force alone. She breathed once, slow. Her gaze swept over the gold-plated hotel sign, over the rows of waiting guests, over the ornate chandelier raining light down like a judgment. Then she looked back at him, quiet, unreadable, and that silence unnerved him more than protest ever could, because silence like that isn't weakness. It's a storm holding itself still. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. She set a single black credit card on the desk. No words, no explanation, just a gesture. The assistant manager tilted her head, lips curving into something between a smirk and suspicion. The manager didn't even glance at the card. Instead, he raised his voice louder, certain, theatrical. "She doesn't belong here." Gasps rippled across the lobby. A young woman clutching her suitcase whispered, "Did he just say that out loud?" An older man leaned back in his chair, brows furrowed. Someone near the elevator pressed record, their red light blinking like a silent witness. The black woman didn't flinch. She had seen this before at 16, waiting in another hotel lobby, told guests only, as if her Sunday dress made her invisible. At 25, again, when a clerk in Los Angeles asked her for a second ID, then a third, while 3 men walked past unchecked. And now, again, same tone, same arrogance, same attempt to erase. But here was the truth the lobby didn't know. This was her hotel, and in 9 minutes, the man pointing his finger would lose everything he thought he controlled. For now, though, she said nothing. She simply stood there, eyes steady, silence pressed against his shouting like steel against thunder. She hadn't planned to draw attention that morning. No bodyguards, no assistants, no designer luggage, just one black leather carry-on and a quiet certainty in her step. She walked through the revolving glass doors the way anyone would, only slower, deliberate, as if she'd been here before, because she had. The Horizon Grand glittered with marble floors and gold trim, a lobby built to impress. Guests passed in pressed suits, heels clicking, luggage rolling like a soundtrack of privilege. No one paused. Until she approached the desk. Gregory Vance, the manager in the gray suit, looked her up and down as though his eyes were scanners set to unfit. His jaw tightened, his voice cut sharp. "Penthouse reservation under your name?" He let the question hang like an accusation. She slid her ID across the counter. Calm, precise, a simple motion, but it felt like a test. Gregory pinched the card between 2 fingers like it might stain him. "Strange," he muttered, loud enough for the lobby to hear. "Doesn't look right." Beside him, Lauren, the assistant manager with the navy blazer, leaned closer, her smile too polished to be kind. "We've seen this before," she said. "People try to bluff their way in. Security will sort it out." From a corner chair, a young guest whispered to her friend, "Why does this feel wrong already?" The friend didn't answer. He just reached for his phone. She breathed slowly, watching. No flare of anger, no sudden move. Just patience, the kind you learn when the world insists on doubting you again and again. Gregory pressed a button beneath the counter. His voice echoed into the lobby intercom. "Security to the front desk. Possible fraud attempt." Gasps flickered through the crowd. A woman near the elevator tightened her grip on her daughter's hand. A man in a suit shook his head, and the camera's phones raised began blinking red lights one after another, like the lobby had turned into a stage. The black woman said nothing. She set down a single sleek credit card, black metal catching the chandelier's light. Lauren tilted her head, unimpressed. That could be fake. Gregory smirked. Most likely island. Behind them, a concierge, young, nervous, lips pressed thin, shifted in place. Her eyes darted to the screen, then back to the woman. Something in her expression said she knew the truth, but she stayed silent. For now, then Gregory's voice rose, sharp enough to slice through the room. You're wasting our time. Walk out now before you embarrass yourself further. Her eyes lifted slowly, steady as stone. Not a word. Not yet. But the lobby felt it, the pause before thunder, the silence that makes strangers lean forward. The first uniformed guard stepped into the lobby, dark navy, radio clipped to his shoulder, the weight of authority stitched across his chest. His boots echoed on the marble like a gavel. He scanned the room, landed on her, and squared his shoulders. What's the issue here? His tone was flat, rehearsed, the kind meant to end conversations before they start. Gregory didn't hesitate. Unauthorized guest. Attempted fraud. Claims a penthouse suite. The manager's voice carried, intentional, pitched so every ear in the lobby caught it. Phones shifted higher. Guests leaned closer. The silent audience became a jury. The black woman's jaw stayed set. No flinch. No retreat. She simply placed her hands on the counter, steady, palms open. I have a reservation, she said, voice calm, clear, cutting through the buzz. Lauren scoffed beside Gregory. Reservation? In this hotel? With that? She gestured at the plain t-shirt, the sneakers. Her smile curved cruel. People don't book penthouses dressed like that. A ripple of discomfort ran through the bystanders. A young woman near the elevators whispered, "Did she just say that out loud?" Another muttered, "That's not policy. That's prejudice." The guard's hand brushed the radio on his belt. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see proof of payment. Now, very." She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone and tapped once. No raised voice, no frantic explanations, just one name, spoken soft but firm. Nia. On the other end, a woman's voice answered instantly, crisp and controlled. "Yes, ma'am." "Start the log," she said, still looking at Gregory. "Logging now," Nia replied, time-stamping every word. Gregory's smirk twitched, but he pressed on. This card isn't hers. He snatched the black metal card from the counter, held it up like a trophy, then dropped it into a drawer with a loud clack. Company property until verified. Gasps broke out. A man in a gray suit muttered, "That's theft." A woman clutching a stroller whispered, "He can't do that." Phones tilted forward, recording the exact moment the line was crossed. The black woman didn't reach for the card. She didn't move at all. Her stillness was louder than any protest. Gregory leaned forward, voice sharp. "You don't belong here. This place isn't for people like you." The lobby froze. The chandelier hummed in the silence. The words weren't policy now, they were prejudice, naked and unashamed. A young concierge at the side desk finally shifted. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, eyes flicking between her manager and the woman standing unshaken at the counter. She wasn't ready to speak. Not yet. But the room was. Murmurs rippled. That's discrimination. Unbelievable. Someone call corporate. Still, the black woman didn't raise her voice. She simply lifted her head, met Gregory's eyes, and said one line, clear enough for every phone, every guest, every guard. "You just made the worst mistake of your career." The drawer slammed shut with a hollow metallic thud. Gregory dusted his hands as if the matter were settled, like he had locked away not just a card but her entire presence. His eyes narrowed, voice carrying across the chandelier-lit lobby. "Security, escort her out." The guard shifted uneasily, glancing between Gregory and the woman who hadn't raised her voice once. His hand hovered near her arm but never touched. Something in her stillness, immovable, anchored, made him hesitate. Lauren stepped forward instead. The assistant manager smoothed her blazer, chin lifted, a cruel smile tightening her lips. "This is over," she said. She reached across the counter, fingers brushing the black woman's wrist. "You're leaving now." Gasps cracked through the room. A phone light flared brighter. Someone whispered, "She touched her." Another voice, sharper, "This isn't right." The black woman didn't pull away. She didn't even blink. She stood steady, eyes locked forward, her silence louder than Lauren's demand. That silence unsettled Lauren. Her hand dropped back to her side, fingers trembling just enough to betray the facade of authority. Gregory barked louder, trying to fill the gap. Fraud! Thief! This hotel doesn't tolerate scams. The words ricocheted off marble and glass. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some lowered their eyes. Others raised their phones higher, red lights glowing like 100 watchful witnesses. A young concierge at the side desk finally spoke, voice small but shaking with courage. Her name. It's in the system. I saw it this morning. The room snapped toward her. Gregory's head whipped around. Enough, he snapped, venom in his tone. Stay in your lane or you're finished. The concierge's lips pressed shut, but her eyes told the truth. She knew, and she wasn't alone anymore. From the back of the lobby, a guest muttered, She booked that room. I heard her give her name. Another added, They're trying to erase her. Gregory ignored them all. He leaned closer, his voice dropping into something harsher, uglier. People like you don't get to stay here, not in my lobby, not in my hotel. The chandelier above seemed to tremble in the silence that followed. The black woman drew a single breath. She turned her head slightly not to Gregory, not to Lauren, but to the crowd now watching, phones raised, eyes wide. And in that calm, controlled tone, she finally spoke again. You think this is your hotel? Her words fell soft, deliberate, but they cut deeper than his shouting ever could. Gregory froze. The guard shifted again, unsettled. Lauren's smirk cracked into confusion, and the guests leaned forward, sensing it, the air bending, the balance tilting, the storm about to break. The lobby was no longer quiet. It hummed, restless, like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. Every chandelier crystal caught the tension, scattering it in fractured light. Gregory straightened, trying to reclaim command. Escort her out, he repeated, but his voice had lost its edge. The guard hesitated. His hand lingered in the air, but he didn't move closer. Too many eyes, too many cameras. Then, from near the espresso bar, a voice rang out unsteady but firm. A young man in a gray hoodie, phone raised, declared, This doesn't look like fraud. This looks like discrimination. Oh, gasps spread. Guests shifted, glancing at one another. The word had been spoken aloud. Discrimination. Lauren snapped her head toward him. Mind your own business, she barked, her polished tone slipping into panic. But it was too late. The spell of silence had broken. An older woman with a floral scarf stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room. I've stayed in this hotel for years. I've never once been asked to prove I belong. Not once. Her hand trembled slightly as she held her phone higher. Why her? Gregory's jaw clenched. Because she's lying, he spat. That card isn't hers. She's wasting all of our time. But even as he spoke, murmurs rose. A father with his teenage son whispered, She doesn't look like she's lying. A young couple near the elevators whispered, She's too calm. If she was guilty, she'd be panicking. Oh, the black woman remained motionless, her gaze sweeping slowly across the crowd, acknowledging their voices without a single word. And then the concierge, young, nervous, but braver, now stepped out from behind her desk. Her voice cracked but carried. Her reservation is in the system. I saw it with my own eyes. All eyes turned. The lobby shifted, tilting toward truth. Gregory's face flushed scarlet. You're finished, he hissed at her. Do you understand? Finished. But the damage was done. The line had been crossed. The silence had fractured into testimony. Phones tilted higher. Guests stood, no longer passive spectators, but witnesses ready to be counted. The black woman didn't raise her hand. She didn't point. She simply looked at Gregory, calm, steady, unshaken, and said softly, Every word you speak is building my case. Ugh! The chandelier above shimmered as though it knew what the room had just realized. This was no longer about one guest versus a manager. It was a trial unfolding in real time. And the lobby, with its marble floors and golden trim, had become the witness stand. The room vibrated with whispers, with phones raised like lanterns in a storm. For a moment, Gregory looked smaller, boxed in by doubt. But then he pushed back, louder, harsher, desperate to reclaim control. She's a fraud, he barked, voice cracking across marble. A con artist parading around like she belongs here. His finger jabbed the air, trembling with rage. Lauren seized the cue. She pulled the landline receiver from its cradle, her voice sharp enough to cut. Security escalation. Possible criminal in the lobby. Send backup immediately. Gasps flared. The words hung heavy. Criminal. The black woman didn't move. She folded her hands neatly atop the counter, eyes forward, as if the insults couldn't pierce her silence. But the crowd shifted. A man near the window whispered, "Criminal? For what?" A young guest muttered, "All she did was check in." Another, louder this time, "They're lying." The uniformed guard glanced uneasily at the landline. His posture wavered, caught between protocol and conscience. Gregory's face twisted into something darker. He leaned closer, venom dripping in each word. "You think a credit card makes you somebody? People like you don't buy penthouses. You sneak in. You scam. That's who you are." The lobby fell silent, stunned by the nakedness of the insult. Phones zoomed closer, capturing every syllable. Then came a new sound heels clicking across marble. Another staff member, older, senior by her demeanor, emerged from the side hallway. "What's happening here?" she asked, eyes darting to the cluster at the front desk. Gregory turned, seizing his moment. "Caught a fraud. She's refusing to leave. We've contacted security." But before the woman could reply, a voice from the crowd cut through. "No, he stole her card. It was the man in the hoodie again, braver now," his phone raised high. "We all saw it." Murmurs ignited, a ripple of agreement spreading like fire through dry brush. The black woman finally lifted her gaze, sweeping across the lobby. Calm, controlled, her voice low but cutting. Every word, every gesture, logged. Gregory's smirk faltered for the first time. Logged? By who? She tapped her phone once, not looking away from him, and a crisp female voice rang out over the speaker. "Nia Thompson, executive assistant. Incident log is active. All timestamps secure." The room shifted again. Guests leaned closer. Lauren's face drained of color. The concierge by the side desk exhaled sharply, almost a gasp. Gregory tried to laugh it off, brittle, forced. "So what? A fake assistant on the phone? That doesn't change the fact that she doesn't belong here." The black woman didn't answer him. Instead, she turned her head slightly, her voice steady but louder now, directed to the room itself. "Belonging isn't yours to grant, and it isn't yours to take." The lobby froze, suspended on the edge of revelation. Phones kept rolling. Eyes stayed locked. And for the first time, Gregory's authority felt fragile, cracking under the weight of his own words. The tension snapped, like a wire pulled too tight. Gregory, emboldened by his own rage, rounded the counter. His polished shoes struck the marble in sharp beats as he stormed closer. "You're done here," he hissed, and before anyone could react, he grabbed her bag from the adjacent stool and flung it to the floor. The leather carry-on hit hard, sliding across the tiles until it struck a guest's chair with a hollow thud. Gasps exploded. A woman near the elevator cried out, "That's assault!" Phones tilted lower, capturing the bag splayed open, personal belongings scattered across polished stone. The black woman didn't bend down. She didn't chase after what was hers. She stood still, her eyes locked on Gregory as if he had just condemned himself. Lauren, flushed with adrenaline, pressed the landline harder to her ear. Her voice rang out clear enough for every camera, every guest. "Yes, police? We have a fraudulent intruder in the lobby. Possible theft. Immediate response requested." The word police hung in the air like a thunderclap. The guard shifted uneasily, sweat forming along his temple. He glanced at the calm woman before him, then at Gregory's wild eyes, and for the first time, doubt crept into his posture. A child's voice pierced the silence, small, innocent. "Mom, why are they so mean to her?" The mother pulled her son close, whispering, "Because they think she doesn't belong. But they're wrong." Phones shook as hands trembled, filming every second. The young concierge finally stepped fully into view, her chest rising with courage she hadn't known she had. "That's enough," she said, voice trembling but steadying with each word. "Her reservation is real. She is supposed to be here." Gregory spun on her, face scarlet. "You're fired." The words spat like venom, but they landed hollow, his authority already unraveling. The black woman remained motionless, shoulders squared, silence radiating more power than any outburst. She lifted her chin slightly, and the entire room leaned in, waiting for her to speak. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, Nia's voice returned over the phone, crisp, undeniable. "Escalation logged. Police call recorded. Incident flagged for corporate ethics review." Lauren's hand froze around the receiver. Gregory's smirk faltered. The guard stepped back half a pace, realizing the ground beneath them was shifting. And the guests, dozens of them, were no longer passive observers. They were witnesses. They whispered. They muttered. They filmed. Some shook their heads. Others clenched their fists. The lobby was alive now, charged. No longer Gregory's stage, but hers. And though her bag lay strewn across the marble, though her dignity had been challenged in every possible way, she stood there unmoved, unbroken, unbending. The storm had reached its peak, and yet she hadn't even started to fight back. The lobby held its breath, belongings scattered, phones raised, accusations echoing off marble. But in the center of the storm, she moved with deliberate calm. She bent down slowly, collected the black credit card receipt Gregory had dropped earlier, and placed it back on the counter with quiet precision. Then, lifting her phone, she spoke into it with a clarity that carried to every corner of the lobby. "Nia," she said. Her voice was low, steady, but every syllable sliced through the air. "Escalate protocol." On the other end, the assistant's voice was crisp, immediate. "Understood. Activating internal audit. All access points being logged. Video archive syncing now." Gregory scoffed. Too loud. Too forced. "More games? You think pretending to have an assistant changes anything? Call whoever you want. I run this lobby." But his words no longer carried the weight they once did. The crowd stirred, restless, shifting toward her. Guests whispered, "She sounds official. This doesn't feel like bluffing. Listen to her tone, she's in control." Lauren clutched the receiver, her knuckles white. "The police are already on their way," she snapped, but her voice trembled, undermining her authority. The black woman didn't look at her. She kept her gaze steady on Gregory, like a surgeon holding a scalpel. "Mark this time, Nia," she said. "This is where they crossed the line." The young concierge stepped closer, shoulders squared now. Her voice steadied. "She's right. I saw her name in the system. Penthouse suite. Executive override." A murmur rippled through the lobby. Proof. Not shouted, not force-spoken by someone inside. Gregory's face drained, then flushed crimson again. He slammed a fist against the counter. "Shut up! You don't know who you're talking about!" But his fury only deepened the cracks. The woman finally turned, not to Gregory, not to Lauren, but to the guests with their phones raised. Her voice rose just enough to reach the far wall. "You've all heard him. You've seen it for yourselves. I don't need to argue. The truth is already here." A hush fell. Even the guard lowered his hand from his radio, his eyes caught in the gravity of her words. Nia's voice rang again, stronger this time. "Audit confirmed. Every word preserved. Do you want me to alert headquarters?" The black woman allowed the silence to stretch, let the weight of the moment press down on everyone watching. Then she answered, calm, controlled, devastating. "Yes. Alert them now. Initiate owner protocol." Phones jerked higher. Gasps slipped through the crowd. Guests glanced at each other, whispering the same stunned word. Owner. Gregory's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Lauren's grip on the receiver faltered. The chandelier seemed to shimmer brighter, as if the hotel itself understood who truly commanded the room. The balance had shifted. She was no longer a guest accused. She was the judge calling the session to order. And the trial had only just begun. The word protocol lingered in the air like smoke. Guests shifted on their heels, whispering, phones trembling as they filmed. Gregory tried to laugh, brittle and sharp, but it cracked in his throat. "Owner protocol?" he sneered. "Ridiculous. You're nobody. A fraud with a story." But her silence unsettled him. She didn't rush. She didn't argue. Instead, she turned her phone so its screen glowed bright in the chandelier's reflection. A company seal appeared, bold, undeniable. Horizon Grand Hospitality Group. Gasps swept the lobby. Someone muttered, "That's real." Another whispered, "Wait, what does that mean?" She lifted her eyes, calm, steady. "It means," she said, her voice like stones striking steel, "that you just insulted the owner of this hotel." The lobby erupted. Phones darted closer. Guests shouted, "She's the owner? No way. Did he just?" Gregory froze, color draining from his face. "You're lying," he stammered, his voice suddenly small. "You can't." But Lauren knew. Her smile vanished, her hand slipping from the receiver. The concierge exhaled, shoulders dropping with relief. And the guard, suddenly aware of the truth, took a deliberate step back, his posture shifting from authority to apology. The black woman let the silence do its work. She had no need to shout. Every witness already understood. Nia's voice came again through the phone, crisp, amplified by the hush. Owner authentication confirmed. Executive override active. All staff actions under review. Gregory's lips trembled. He reached for the drawer, fumbling to retrieve the black card he had locked away. "Here," he muttered. "Just take it back." But she didn't reach for it. She didn't move at all. Instead, she leaned forward, her words soft but heavy enough to anchor the entire room. "You don't get to steal from me, then hand it back like nothing happened." Ugh. The crowd erupted in murmurs again, the kind that carried judgment, the kind that sealed reputations. A man near the bar said it plainly. "He's finished," Lauren whispered, almost to herself. "She owns it. She really owns it." Gregory's hands shook as he set the card on the counter. "Please," he muttered, the bravado gone. "We didn't know." Her gaze didn't waver. "That was the point, wasn't it? You assumed. You decided. And now everyone sees what that costs." The chandelier glittered above them like a verdict delivered. She lifted her phone once more. "Nia," she said, voice steady, resolute. "Document this moment. Effective immediately. Terminate Gregory Vance's position. Suspend Lauren Hayes pending investigation." Gasps cut through the lobby like thunder. Guests leaned forward, phones buzzing, recording every second. Gregory stumbled back, his badge vibrating red, access denied in real time. Lauren's screen blinked the same. The black woman stood in the center of it all, calm, unmoving, undeniable. And for the first time, the Horizon Grand's lobby truly belonged to its rightful owner. The beep of denial echoed across the lobby. Gregory's badge flickered red, then went dark. The same with Lauren's tablet, the Horizon system wiping their access in real time. The silence that followed wasn't quiet, it was electric. Gregory stared at the useless badge in his hand as though it had betrayed him. No, this can't be." His voice cracked, half whisper, half plea. Lauren's hands shook as she fumbled with the landline. The screen blinked invalid credentials. She slammed it down, muttering, "This isn't happening." The crowd moved like a tide, shifting closer, phones raised higher. Whispers grew into open commentary. She just fired them. Live, in front of everyone. They thought she was a fraud, she's the boss. A woman with a floral scarf laughed softly, not unkindly, but sharp with justice. Poetic, isn't it? Humiliation flipped on its head. The young concierge's cheeks flushed, eyes wide, took a bold step forward. She turned toward the black woman, her voice steady now. "I knew your name was real. I should have spoken sooner." The CEO's gaze softened for the first time. Not a smile, but an acknowledgement. "You did when it mattered." Gregory stumbled back against the desk. His authority had collapsed, his voice no longer carrying weight. "Please, don't do this. I have a family." But the crowd didn't sympathize. They had seen too much. A man in a tailored suit spoke flatly, as if for the record. "You humiliated her in her own hotel. You don't deserve this job." Lauren pressed a hand to her forehead, eyes darting to the phones, capturing her unraveling. "Delete those videos. You can't post this," she shouted, desperation leaking into every syllable. But the phones stayed up, unwavering. The world outside the lobby was already watching. The guard, silent until now, lowered his head. He clipped his radio back to his belt and stepped aside, his posture a quiet admission. He had chosen the wrong side. And then, applause. It started with one guest, soft, tentative, but it spread like fire. Hands clapped, voices cheered, some whistled. Not for spectacle, for justice. Gregory's face twisted in disbelief. He shook his head, muttering, "This isn't how it's supposed to go." But it was, and the crowd knew it. The black woman remained centered in the chaos, still as marble, her silence commanding more respect than any speech. The applause swelled around her, not as noise, but as verdict. She didn't bask in it. She didn't gloat. She simply let the moment breathe, let every person in that room absorb the truth. Power doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply reveals itself. And in that revelation, Gregory and Lauren were already finished. The applause faded into a charged silence. All eyes remained locked on her, the woman who had been called an intruder minutes earlier, now revealed as the true authority. She lifted her phone again, deliberate, steady. "Nia," she said, voice firm but calm. Execute termination protocol. The assistant's voice came sharp through the speaker. Confirmed. Termination of Gregory Vance and Lauren Hayes. Immediate lockout from payroll, system access, and Horizon Network. Filing legal report for misconduct. A cascade of notifications rang out in the lobby. Gregory's phone buzzed, then went black. Lauren's tablet screen froze, flashing unauthorized. Even the guard's earpiece crackled with the system's override. Gregory lunged forward, desperation overtaking him. Wait! You can't do this. I've given this hotel 10 years of my life. His voice broke, ragged, unrecognizable. But the guests weren't moved. A man in a blazer muttered, 10 years of prejudice, maybe, a woman added. 1 minute of truth erased it all. Lauren clutched the counter, eyes darting as though searching for a lifeline. Please, miss. She stopped herself, realizing she didn't even know the name of the woman she'd mocked. Please, I need this job. The black woman didn't flinch. Her gaze was sharp, unwavering. You should have thought of that before you stole from me, before you lied about me, before you called the police to erase me from my own lobby. Lauren's knees buckled. She stumbled back, tears brimming, but the phone stayed on her. Merciless witnesses. Gregory's face twisted in anger once more, but there was no strength left in his outburst. You'll regret this, he spat, but the words rang hollow. No, she replied, her voice soft but final. You will. The young concierge stepped closer, her voice trembling with courage. What about Kevin? He locked the card away. The CEO turned slightly, her expression unchanged. Add Kevin Patel to the termination list. Yes, ma'am, Naya answered. Processing now. The safe behind the desk beeped, flashing red. Kevin, who had been hiding at the edge of the chaos, slumped in defeat. His access vanished as swiftly as Gregory's. The crowd murmured in awe. She just fired them all. 3 at once, right in front of us. And still, she didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stood firm, her silence weightier than their pleas, her words as precise as a judge's gavel. For Gregory, for Lauren, for Kevin, there was no appeal, no second chance. Their power had evaporated in real time, witnessed by dozens of guests and countless more through the phones capturing every second. Justice hadn't come with shouting. It had arrived in the quiet authority of a woman who knew exactly who she was. The red glow from the failed badges still lingered on the counter, symbols of a power structure dismantled in plain sight. The crowd, phones raised, stood hushed, not in fear, but in awe. The black woman, still calm in her plain black shirt, finally turned from Gregory and Lauren. She faced the lobby itself, her gaze sweeping across every witness. You've seen what happens when people mistake silence for weakness, she said, voice steady as iron. When they confuse appearance with worth, when they think dignity is theirs to grant or to deny. Her words rolled through the room, not loud, but deliberate, each one landing with weight. Guests lowered their phones slightly, not to stop recording, but because they wanted to listen. Gregory slumped against the desk, his face pale. Lauren wept quietly, eyes fixed on the marble floor. Kevin sat in the corner, head in his hands. She continued, softer now, but sharper still. I don't need to replay this moment on a screen. I am the result of it. Every insult, every attempt to erase me. They didn't break me. They built me. A murmur of agreement spread through the lobby. Someone whispered, that's real power. Another added, she never shouted once. The young concierge, tears brimming in her eyes, stepped forward. Thank you, she said, voice trembling, for standing, for proving it. The CEO nodded once, acknowledging her, then turned her gaze back to the crowd. Remember this, she said. Respect isn't about what you wear or how loudly you demand it. Respect is truth, and truth doesn't need permission. The chandelier above shimmered brighter, as if the very building affirmed her words. Applause erupted again, louder, fuller, unrestrained. Guests clapped, cheered, some even shouted her name. Not as a spectacle, but as recognition. She didn't raise her hands. She didn't bow. She simply gathered her bag from the floor, placed the black card back into her wallet, and turned toward the elevators. As she walked away, the parted crowd closed behind her not to block, but to shield, to honor. The path she took was hers alone, but the weight of her victory belonged to everyone watching. Gregory, Lauren, and Kevin remained frozen in their ruin, their authority stripped bare, their downfall complete. And she silent, steady, Undeniable, left the lobby with nothing more than the truth she had carried all along. Justice hadn't needed sirens. It hadn't needed shouting. It needed only her presence.